member from the 4th to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of Amendment 1119.
It's been moved and seconded that Amendment 1119 be adopted. Remarks? The good member from the 4th Legislative District, Representative Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment would help the Secretary of State's office out, actually by helping them do a study on what's going on in the election system. The Albert sensor is a device that is installed on a computer network. It is actually a computer device that is installed on a computer network. And this device sends a mirrored copy of anything going through to, say, the elections department back to its headquarters in New York, where it's monitored. Then if they detect an issue with that system, then an alert is sent to the county and to the Secretary of State's office saying they may have an issue. The challenge is one of the counties installed this and shortly afterwards had an issue that when the CIS company called, they were unable to get a hold of anyone, causing an issue in their systems. And so they actually chose to remove their Albert sensor system. And they've not had any issues since. They went with a different company. This amendment will simply give the counties the opportunity to choose to go with a different vendor instead of the mandated one that the Secretary of State's office is mandating that they take. Again, they've only certified one vendor, and this bill states they must install it and that they must use this one vendor. This amendment not only gives them an opportunity to choose another vendor, but it also gives them the opportunity to do a study on how the systems are working. I urge an adoption of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed to the amendment say nay. No. The amendment is not adopted. The member from the 4th to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of 1118.
It's been moved and seconded that Amendment 1118 be adopted. Remarks? The good member from the 4th Legislative District, Representative Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Imagine for a moment you live in a gated neighborhood. You pay a guard to stand at the gate and only allow certain people into your neighborhood. A place where it is safe to enjoy your kids playing in the yard, washing your car in the yard. It's a safe environment. You've paid for that security. Now imagine one of the neighbors decided to poke a hole in the fence because they didn't want to wait in line to go through the gated. That's what is happening at this day. The Albert sensor is being installed behind a county's firewall system. The firewall system is designed to keep out intruders and bad actors out of the system. It allows the computers, the printers that are behind it, and that the information coming in and out of it has been protected. That system has been guaranteed. It is monitored 365. It provides updates. If all the Albert sensor is doing is monitoring for intrusions, it can do it outside the gate, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't need to be inside the gate. The problem with it being inside the gate is they create a portal through the firewall that allows CIS, the company that's a nonprofit located in New York, they have the ability to come through that gate at a different location, not through the normal checks and balances, an open gate through just for them to provide updates to the system and to receive information back from the system. It is that porthole that causes the issue. And so therefore, Mr. Speaker, this amendment allows the Albert sensor to be removed outside the gate to still monitor the information, but at the same time, keep the information inside the firewall safe from intrusions. I would highly urge a yes on this amendment.
Those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. No. The amendment is not adopted. The member from the 4th to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of 1117.
It's been moved and seconded that Amendment 1117 be adopted. Remarks? The good member from the 4th Legislative District, Representative Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Imagine for a moment you're told you must buy an item. You must buy it from a specific vendor, and yet you're not given any choices. Now, granted, the state's giving them the money back, but the Secretary of State's office is mandating that the counties enter into a contract with the direct Albert sensor owner, which is CIS. What that does is that removes the liability from the state. Because if something goes wrong, the state just says, sorry, it's not our contract. You got into the contract from the counties. We have no liability here. Mr. Speaker, in a world where I live, that's ridiculous. You couldn't tell somebody to buy something, it causes trouble, and then they walk away from the liability. This amendment, Mr. Speaker, says if that Albert sensor, because it created a hole in the firewall, allows a bad actor to come in and cause issues in the county system, that the state has to receive a little bit of liability for that because they forced the issue. They didn't give them any choice. And in fact, if they don't take the issue, if they don't take the Albert sensor, they might be able to be saying they're not doing their job and being removed from the office. This is unbelievable that you would be able to tell somebody you have to buy a system and then walk away from the liability of it. I urge the adoption of this amendment because it's the right thing to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The amendment is not adopted. The member from the 4th to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of 1120.
It's been moved and seconded that Amendment 1120 be adopted. Remarks the good member from the 4th Legislative District, Representative Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Growing up, my mother had a saying. Whenever us kids were bad, she'd say, I brought you into this world, I can take you out of it. Well, Mr. Speaker, I believe the voters put us into office. Only the voters can take us out of it, and nobody else. Mr. Speaker, this amendment makes it pretty clear that the Secretary of State's office doesn't get to be the judge and the jury or take the place of the thousands of voters who put us in the office. You must be convicted of a crime to be forced to forfeit your office. I believe this is one of the enforcement mechanisms of this bill. And I ask that we consider, you consider, and I consider, Mr. Speaker, that to protect our state and our offices, that we deserve our day in court, not just one person being able to take us out of office in a partisan office. I urge the adoption so that we can keep our government working safely. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The amendment is not adopted. Further remarks, the good member from the 4th Legislative District, Representative Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I believe this bill is a bar fight between the Secretary of State's office and 3 counties that just don't want to comply with his request. But there's a reason why they don't want to comply. Number one, they represent the people in their districts, in their counties, Mr. Speaker. So for the county to be able to represent their people, they have to have options. And so they've taken options. In fact, one county took the machine and had issues and removed the machine. Now, I understand that it might be convenient for the Secretary of State's office to have everyone exactly the same, but that's heavy-handed tactics. And the best part about it, he's using this body to make sure he has no liability come election night.
If the good member could refrain from impugning the motives of the Secretary of State's office, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this bill is a bad bill that allows the state to direct one company that's been certified to force the installation of an Albert sensor that in reality, if I was a bad actor, I wouldn't be looking for the porthole. I'd be looking for CIS because guess what? I would have a highway into every county who has these machines. And I wouldn't have to worry about it. You only have to hack one company instead of all the different counties because you have an access portal through all of them through that one company, Mr. Speaker. It's foolish, being that I actually worked as a system administrator in the military for a while when we started putting computers in to the trucks. Firewalls are there for a purpose. They are there to stop bad actors from getting to important information. This company is allowed a highway right to their machine. And granted, these machines right now are passive. But guess what? computers can have, they have updates that go to them, so they can reprogram the BIOS to do other things. Maybe the actual sensor could prevent doing denial of service on election night. Now, I'm not saying it's going to change the election results. That is not correct. I believe that system is completely separate, not on the internet, but it could block the results from coming out of the counties, which in just causes people to question our elections. And we need more security in our elections and more confidence in our elections, not people having concerns that election night we can't get the information out because of this censor possibly. So I'm going to urge that we say no to this bill because we want to make sure that people are confident with our election system. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There are 58 yeas, 37 nays, 3 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, Senate Bill 5843 is declared passed.